Hi there, welcome to Island Fly Tarot. I'm going to do a tarot card reading for Libra energy. And we're going to do this 10 card spread. We're going to use these decks from Intuit, from their Etsy shop. And we're going to read it from a couple different perspectives because people can be more mature or more immature in their Libra energy of themselves. And, we can all, when we're more immature, we can think it's just unfair to be more about ourselves or bossy or controlling or lazy, want reward without effort, want it to be more about us, caught up in ourselves. Libra is air sign energy. Some people could have a problem where they really just get too caught up in their head and maybe become a little more disconnected from listening to their emotions and their intuition to guide them, and could let other things or fear or in our shadow nature, we can kind of look for an easy answer. Sometimes we don't want to see the truth that we might need to heal and grow and mature ourselves. So this might be something that could be something that people who are a Libra sun sign or have a lot of significant Libra placements in their astrological chart might be dealing with. But in turn, we all tap into Libra energy, what we think is just and fair. Again, kind of our emotional maturity level, and you know just like we've all been 15, we can know some people who are just more immature. We accept the fact of that. Don't expect people to be something that they're not. Accept people where they're at and see the truth of maybe who you want to get in more involved relationships with and who you don't, depending on, again, what they think is just and fair. If they're more about themselves or the world, or like to live more from their mind than their heart, and if you're someone who likes deep, meaningful relationships that are more just and fair, and that's not them, the truth sets us free. So, I view this card as the overarching reason for the reading. Conformity. I kind of view it as earth sign energy, maybe Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus, a little more so Taurus, because in Taurus energy, which can be about our philosophy of life, we can get more caught up in conforming to the world and making our life about having a certain status and image, or power or influence, or being more about ourself. And of course, if you're more about yourself, you think other people should conform to your way of viewing life. And Taurus energy can talk about kind of all these rules and regulations in our head that we could have picked up in life. We have them in our own head. We have our own thoughts and ideas. But other people and our communities and the world at large try to tell us, you should look like this and you should act like this. And if you make your life about these things, you'll be happy. But high vibe Taurus and high vibe Virgo and Capricorn is acknowledging the fact that we do live in the world and there are these things of the world that we like, but if we give those things too much precedent in our life, those things can like trap and imprison us. So high vibe Libra, represented by the scales of justice, is to find balance within ourselves. That, do I want some of these things of the world? Yes, but I also want to invest in my more loving, creative, inspired, intuitive nature and emotional nature and inspired nature to live my truth from high vibe, from love. I want to treat other people the way I like to be treated. I want to be loving and encouraging and supportive to other people. And I want to work together with other people who are like that. And then there's going to be people in the world who that's not their truth, and they're going to make their life more about being maybe more rigid and conform to making their life about some other ideal. So we start out with teaching, hiking, and judgment. So life is about learning lessons. We go on these journeys in life to learn these lessons. We've all been more caught up in the world. We've all been more manipulated by the world and other people and our fear and our insecurity and all those things, and our lust and our greed and all those things. We've all been there. It's just that some people weren't going to let those things in the judgment card keep dictating their life. We go on these journeys to learn lessons. We come together with all these different people and meet all these different people to help us get more clear about our truth, and see that everyone has the free will to live their life the way they want, to invest their time, energy, and effort into whatever they want to invest their time, energy, and effort into, and have their ideas of what they think is just and fair. And we respect they're an individual who has that free will. We, in turn, are our own individual. And we have our truth, and we have the things we want to invest our time, energy, and effort into, and things that motivate and inspire us, and they have things that motivate and inspire them. And, we've all gotten in relationships with different people where, they could have called judgment on us when we were being more immature or bossy or controlling or manipulated or conforming to the world. And we could have called judgment on some people when we thought they were kind of in that energy. And just like you could call judgment on someone right now in your life, like I find them more bossy and controlling or more caught up in these things of the world, they in turn could feel that way also about people in their life, right? So it is kind of relative. I mean, everybody in a way could move forward in a more high vibrational way, but it doesn't mean that everybody is on the same page, right? A 15-year-old can become an 18-year-old and they move forward and are looking at life differently, but people who might be 25 and 30 have learned a lot more lessons than them, right? And some people might never want to grow up with the judgment card or live their life any differently. Some people, in a kind of a more, everybody can view themselves as stable, grounded, just, fair person at whatever viewpoint of life that they have. And they could like to inspire other people and encourage other people in a way. And that's where sometimes we can get in mismatched relationships, because you think they're motivated and inspired by the same things you are. And you could have a lot of things in common. And you could like a lot of similar activities and entertainment things and have a lot in common. And you think that you're operating from the same truth. And we can get in jobs, friendships, and relationships, and we can be in them for quite a long time. But here we have this card not showing itself. But first we have the teaching, the hiking, the judgment. We get in and out of different jobs, friendships, and relationships. Hopefully we did learn some lessons and kind of get a little more with the organizing card. A little bit more aware of us being less scattered, less manipulated, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to follow my heart. Oh my gosh, I'm going to follow my lust and greed. Oh my gosh. So that can be like scattered energy. We all tap into all 12 of the zodiac signs, the 3 emotional signs, the 3 earth signs, the 3 air signs, the 3 fire signs. And hopefully, we start to come a little bit more into our own. Maybe kind of realizing, what goes with what, maybe when I'm dealing with a child, maybe I should be more compassionate and forgiving and understanding. They're a little child. When I'm dealing with an adult that's acting like a child, I kind of pick and choose which ones are more appropriate. And then, hopefully we maybe become a little more self-aware with this being clothing, kind of how we present ourselves maybe in the world. I might like socks, but maybe I just shouldn't wear socks out in the world. It's kind of like, and kind of seeing how all these different aspects of ourself, our heart, our mind, our worldly nature, our creative passion nature, how we can kind of mix and match those to fit situations appropriately. And Libra energy can be kind of like our public persona, public politician persona. You know, we know, hopefully, people have learned that it shouldn't just be all about them and that they should just be indulged. But there are some people who still haven't figured out what kind of goes with what and what's more appropriate and at certain times than others, and they still have some lessons to learn. But some other people did do some of that inner work within themselves, and I'm kind of looking at the hiking card and the teaching card. Well, the teaching card as Sagittarius energy, in fire sign energy, of kind of what drives and motivates us, and are we willing to learn lessons, or do we like to think we know it all and we're the judge and the jury and we think we're perfect and we are supposed to instruct other people to inspire them to do things the way we do things? And some people are very regimented, right? And then they try to make other people be more regimented. And it's like, I might be a little bit more of a free spirit. And then the hiking card reminds me of Virgo energy, which can be about what our long term goals are. And if we're kind of, again, a long term goal, to have more of inspired with a long term goal to conform to the world and make our life about those things, or if our truth is, I'm kind of more independent, and I think everybody had the free will to choose to live their life the way they wanted to live their life. I'm not out to hurt anyone. I want to do justice and fairness and truth and love. And I find that a little confining and restrictive. And some of the people who are a little bit more about themselves, or a little bit more about the world, or a little more rigid, yeah, they could have called judgment on you and you could have called judgment on them. Because just kind of, it's like with the 12 zodiac signs, and we could have our own kind of more preference of the mix of what makes us feel more balanced within ourselves. Some people are very heavily maybe in their emotional water sign energy, and other people are more aligned with their being more grounded and stable, and you know it's just kind of trying to find the right mix. And do we complement each other? Do we, in a sense that there's not too great of a contrast, that we're complete opposites, but we can kind of be opposites, but we're still kind of complementary and beneficial to each other in different ways. But we have to appreciate that each person is their own individual, and of course not think it should just be more about me or my way. And some people do, and they got some lessons to learn about the freedom card of not trying to control people, because some people are very afraid of kind of going with the flow or listening to their own intuition, or afraid, and so they try to control people. And of course, because of their fear, they think it's just unfair to control people. And other people have a little more hope and faith and trust in people. And if they've gotten to know them and they feel like, I think this person, maybe in high vibe earth sign energy, is somebody who does act with character and integrity. And, they've learned some of these lessons in life. They are being stable and grounded, and they might be a little more of a free spirit, but, do I really think they're completely immature or all about themselves? Well, then, kind of trust your intuition a little bit more. But some people really have a problem with that. And again, some people are more disconnected with their emotional nature of listening more to their intuition, and maybe get caught up in their head and their fear and their insecurities, that if I don't try to control people, who knows what they'll do. And sometimes it can sabotage a relationship, and people who would have liked to, maybe in the organizing card, would have liked to work things out with people. It's just like, oh my gosh, I cannot live like this. And, we could, with some of the people when we were initially in relationships and some of the people that are in it right now, they could think that we're working together to maybe go kind of looking at the freedom card as going on this new journey, and maybe to have new beginnings, work together in a new job, move forward more involved or something in a relationship, or take a relationship to the next level. But we can be in those situations for quite a long time, and then we could kind of have a problem because we didn't realize that with some of the people in our life, we kind of harness this energy differently. And we can tend to think maybe if we have a lot of things in common and that we're kind of motivated and inspired by the same things and we enjoy a lot of the same things, and we might have some similar philosophies of life and ways of viewing life, and again, things that kind of long-term goals and things that motivate and inspire us. And of course, we can be attracted to each other and all that good stuff. But then a problem could be is that we can assume that other people, if certain situations were to come up in life, or just assume that they harness this energy the same way we do. And then we can find out with some of the people in our life that we don't. And it's between the judgment card and then the balance card. And it could be something that stands between, because these both kind of have a Libra energy aspect to them. One could be a little more immature or codependent or judgmental or rigid. The other one could be a little more fun, free flowing, going along with nature, and also maybe about learning lessons in life and inspired to learn lessons in life. So, and other people are like, no, this is the way you should do it. This is the way my family did it, or my friends did it, or my mom and dad. And I might want to get in a new friendship, get in a new relationship, but to be willing, you have to get out of your ego to be willing to learn lessons. Some people could be defensive to admitting they have some lessons to learn, or getting out of their defensive nature, or thinking they know best, or being more about things in the world they like to indulge in, or being more just and fair in a relationship, right? So what is this card? The Children card. So that card reminds me of the Six of Cups. I mean, for some people, if they were at some point in time in their life with some of these people, and some people now, one of the issues could be children, and I don't want to have children. Otherwise, the Six of Cups can just be that, kind of can be, I want to indulge in a relationship. Do I want to be in the relationship? Yes. But I might not want to be in a more formal commitment. And other people could want to be in a more formal commitment. Some people could find that more restricting. Other people could feel like, I guess if you feel like we love and believe in each other, and it could make other people wonder, why not? Are you kind of keeping your options open in case something better comes along? The Six of Cups also, I view that as Six of Cups and it's Scorpio energy. Some people, again, are more, they can be kind of tipped out of balance, where I don't really like to connect in with my emotions that much. And Scorpio in high vibe is about kind of going on the roller coaster of life. It is wanting to explore the mysteries of life. We are these emotionally complex human beings. I want to feel the highs. And I know there'll be lows with it. And other people are like, no, I need to maintain my balance. And I think if I connect in with my emotions too much, because we're emotionally complex people, we can have completely like opposing thoughts about the same thing. It's really confusing. I hate them. I like them. I don't want to talk to them. I hope they call me tomorrow. I want to be more independent of them. I'm codependent on them. You know, we're complex people. And some people are like, nope, maybe in my fire sign. And the judgment card, I think, actually really is more fixed sign energy, where I have this way of doing things. I don't want to change. I don't want to step out of my comfort zone. And the Six of Cups can be, I want to repeat a pattern. I have a way of living life, viewing life in a way that maybe I could find very abundant. The contracts card is also like Libra energy. And some things they keep under lock and key, and it could be harnessing their Scorpio energy in a more high vibe way where they're more willing to let their more hopeful, believing nature out to play in the world. And some people are like, no, I'm not doing that. I think I can have a perfectly fine life and a lot of stability and abundance and stable, grounded relationships, but I don't want to let my more hopeful, believing, loving nature out to play. They could get hurt. And somewhere along the way, I decided I'm not doing that. And, you know, for people who haven't let their more, it's kind of like, say people don't have much experience out in the workforce, right? When we first went and got a job, we got that job. That was scary. And then to think of going and getting another job, that was really scary. Until you have more practice, it can always be scary to go look for a new job and interview for a new job. But once you've done it a few times and you kind of know how things work, people work together with you. They know you don't know everything and you don't know their phone system and you don't know their, just the basic fundamental things of how their copier works and, learning their computer system if you got to do that. And, it can all be scary, but you know that if they hired you for the job, they're going to work with you for you to learn that. But some people who haven't had that experience, it can be much more scarier. And the same thing for people who haven't let their more authentic nature out to play, because we can hide behind our more worldly, egoic nature of defensiveness. And then for them to let their more hopeful, believing, more authentic nature out to play is really scary, and they hide behind their ego, and it's like their inner child nature just looks out through the eyeballs while their kind of more defensive or egoic and self-protective nature runs their life. And I view Libra as the King of Swords, and I view the King of Swords in shadow can be our more self-protective, defensive nature. You're not going out there. You could go get hurt. We have to be practical. We have to be logical. We've got to put in work and effort to, that maybe the most important things are having a certain status and image in the world so people view us a certain way. And if we have those things of the world, or we look a certain way and we put in work and effort into what we look like, or our body, or what we dress like, or who we know, or our social clout, whatever it is that people view as an asset that they kind of have, that would be the abundance card. They could feel like, then I don't have to do that because I have these other things that people in the world can also want. They can want someone who conducts themselves kind of like a pillar of society, or seems stable and grounded, does seem to kind of be motivated to put in work and effort to have stability and security. That's kind of like earth sign energy. And so in a lot of ways, they look like they have justice in the world. Other people would view them as kind of seeming to have these traits, qualities, and characteristics that we can look for in people. But if they get in a more mismatched relationship and someone else is more inspired to not make their life more about those things of the world, I mean, we all can put in work and effort to have stability and security and like to enjoy some of the finer things in life, but it doesn't kind of tip me out of balance where that's more important to me than, like, I don't want to stay in a job just because it pays well. If I could get a job that, maybe I make less money, but they're much more loving and encouraging people versus being with people who are more bossy or controlling. And some people, my life isn't really about the status and image. I want to live my life, be proud of myself. I don't need the whole world to view me a certain way. That's not my end goal. And for some people, it is. And it's just kind of noticing these differences. And if some people are people who want to be in more deep, meaningful relationships as time goes by, it's kind of that, are we going to listen to our intuition with the listening card here, kind of at the end of the story? And then we have the relocation card, which I also view as Sagittarius energy. You know, what kind of drives and motivates me? What kind of drives and motivates them? If we were to look to the future and what our long-term goals are, kind of in our Virgo energy here and our Capricorn energy of kind of what we value and what I think is more just and fair in the mix that I want in my life and the mix that other people might want in their life. I really value being in more loving and encouraging and supportive environments, and people who aren't really those kind of people themselves might not even like that kind of environment. I would rather work with people who's like, let's be practical, let's be grounded, let's put in the work. And we all have our own comfort zone. So some people could be in jobs, friendships, or relationships right now, could be moving forward in something, and then if they agree that maybe with the contract, with the lock and key on it, that this is something I do want to hold on to. I don't want, if I'm tempted in my more immature nature to take action in a way that would be hurtful to this relationship, because of these lessons I've learned in life, I'm going to, if I start to get up in my head and my fear or my lust or my greed or whatever, I'm not going to maybe align with my more immature nature, and I'm going to align with maintaining balance. Kind of the listening card makes me think of somebody trying to connect with nature, their more authentic truth, instead of being manipulated by their more shadowy nature, and to keep staying focused on maintaining balance within themselves, putting in work and effort to work cooperatively with the people in their life who work cooperatively with them, and the people in their life who are like that, they're going to probably keep moving forward with those people. Now, if people are a little more about the world or a little more into whatever they're into, that other people could maybe kind of find a little more indulgent of self. If they're in relationships with people where they feel like they're on the same page and those people are willing to, I guess, kind of be on the same page, want to, in agreement, those people will keep moving forward together. The people that are in a more mismatched relationship, some of them might stay in it and keep moving forward in it, but they both might be hiding that it's not really their truth. If one person is more inspired by truth and love and the other person really isn't, and doing more deep, meaningful relationships, I would think they both might be thinking of kind of getting out of it because we all really like and we have the right to live our truth. And if we're in a more mismatched relationship, the shadowy more people, aren't really living their truth. But they might move forward with people again, because in a lot of ways it can be great to be in relationships with loving and encouraging people, but they might really like to be more about some of these other things and make their life or more about themselves or more about ego and image or more about indulging themselves in the world. And it can feel kind of restrictive, and eventually they probably are going to indulge their more immature nature in some way. If they're bossy and controlling and they have been holding back on being more bossy and controlling, eventually it might come out. Like, I just can't hold it in anymore. That is my truth. That is my nature. And then that can cause the end to a relationship. In high vibe, the Six of Cups can talk about working together cooperatively, and people could have been doing that and trying to do that. But if it's not really their nature, it's not really how they want to live their life. I want it to be more about me, or I want to go do these things, and I don't feel like I can do those things with you, or you're not motivated and inspired by those things. And the best thing would be if everybody could acknowledge that. I mean, if people are bossy and controlling and prideful and egotistical and immature and self indulgent and self centered, it's kind of hard not to feel really negatively towards them, right? But it would be nice if people could get to a place where, and I think that's what the high vibe people do, is they can notice this mismatch. There could be a lot of reasons why they would like to stay in it and they'd like it to work out. But if that's not that person's truth, we kind of have to reconcile ourselves that if they, it's just not where they're at. And just like at different stages of my life, I could have had people who wanted me to think a different way, act a different way, behave a different way, but that wasn't where I was at. And it wasn't how I wanted to live my life. But sometimes it is just, some people you can just be kind of more immature, and other people really can be much more shadowy and selfish and self-centered and egotistical. So, but I think high vibe people come to a place of coming to a place of peace about it. And even if the shadowy people don't do something that kind of sabotages the relationship, the high vibe people eventually might be too that, I don't want to feel like I'm having to like be a parent to someone. I want to be in a relationship with someone who just works together with me because they want to work together with me. And it's not like I'm trying to chase someone down and get them to grow up or mature themselves or change. And we can all repeat certain patterns of relationships. We could have known people and grown up in family dynamics where people were more mismatched, and maybe one person was more loving and nurturing or giving or patient, and the other person, male or female, could have been a little more about themselves or a little bossy or a little controlling. And we all know men and women in the world who we know are more immature and more about themselves and think they should be indulged in relationships. And there's always other people who can get in those kind of mismatched relationships with them. And it could stop them from getting the justice they deserve, because we could have taken some actions when we were younger and maybe more immature, And we thought, of course, they would want to live life the way we wanted to live life. And they thought, of course, we would want to live life the way they wanted to live life. And then as time goes by, we could kind of realize we're more mismatched. And then because of the world, though, and what would the world think? And, kind of more conforming to man made rules than listening to our intuition and kind of wishing each other peace, and that your truth isn't my truth isn't your truth, and how about you go live your life the way you want it? I'm going to go live my life the way I want it. And we both live our truth and be at peace with the fact that, I wasn't happy when it was more mismatched. You probably weren't happy when it was more mismatched. Or you could have been happy because you did get to kind of indulge yourself more if I thought you were being more shadowy. But I want to be in a relationship with someone who is kind of more motivated and inspired by the same things I am. And if that's not your truth, I don't feel like we work well together, because I feel like some people get to indulge themselves in their more immature ways of being, and I could feel like I'm the one putting in the work and effort to try to keep maintaining balance within in the situation and make it more loving and just and balanced. But I feel like I'm putting in more of that work, and love is supposed to be just and fair, and you're supposed to treat other people the way you like to be treated. And I think when we get inspired more to our listening to our intuition is telling us this is an injustice. Did we all have lessons to learn? Could we have all been in different ways beneficial? And that could have been kind of why we were drawn and attracted to each other, to learn some lessons from each other, maybe help us both get a little bit more clear and stable and grounded within ourselves. But then it can be to realize that, our truths are different, but, we each could have kind of benefited each other, and to kind of look at life differently than, it could have changed both of us. Hopefully, we would come to realize later in ways that were beneficial for us, that if it hadn't been for some of those friendships or jobs or work experiences, maybe we wouldn't have be where we're at now. Maybe we wouldn't have learned some of the lessons we needed to learn. We'd be repeating some old patterns. Maybe it forced us to do some of this inner work to help us get more clear about what our truth was and what wasn't, and not get in more mismatched relationships moving forward. So, in a lot of ways, everybody could have grown from the experience in different ways. I think the people who might try to go back and repeat an old pattern might kind of realize that they can't go back to that past because they're not that same person anymore. Did they maybe get in relationships with people who were a couple timelines ahead of them in having learned some lessons that made them not the same person they used to be, but they could think, no, 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 I don't want to do this. That's not my truth. And they could think, I'll go back to the way I was, but going back to the way it was, it'd be like being 15, becoming an 18-year-old, as you're heading close to 21 and having to take on more responsibilities. You think, instead of going to the next stage of life like a 21-year-old, I'm going to go back maybe to being like a 15-year-old, metaphorically, and you just really can't go back there. But you might then realize, oh, I got to stay more at the 18-year age level. And as they do that, some of the things that they went to go work thinking they wanted to go back to didn't work out because they realized they're not that person anymore. And then it's for them to try to find their new balance at maybe staying metaphorically like an 18-year-old. But while they're doing that, the other people are moving on because once we learn the lessons we were meant to learn and we don't have an interest in repeating that old pattern because the bird's flying that way, we kind of detach from an old way of looking at life and viewing life, a way we used to think was just and fair and we lived our life about. We've healed and grown and matured ourselves in ways and maybe learned to stand up for ourselves, listen to our intuition, feel more balanced within ourselves, more connected in with ourselves, more grounded within ourselves, and more willing to want to be more inspired now to be in relationships with people who we do think are more on the same page as us. And some people got out of those, have gotten in ones that are more aligned with them, whether it's jobs, friendships, or relationships. And other people are still, if they're a match, they're still moving forward in it, whatever kind of match it is. And there's always going to be people that are like, I'm not ready to go to that next level. And they'll try to go back and do what they did before. And again, sometimes people keep trying to repeat certain patterns that a lot of people don't like. And it's kind of like, we all might have put up with more bullshit when we were younger, but we're all not younger anymore. And then they keep trying to find people like people did when they were younger that would put up with some of their shit. And they could have a harder and harder time finding people who want to do that. And it kind of forces them that they've got to buck up and, grow up some, or kind of indulge themselves in the world in whatever way they want to. What's coming up for people who might harness some high vibe Libra energy that they might not see coming? Okay. The Shadow card. Why? Because of the Moon card and the Emperor card. So because some of you, the Moon card, kind of like the listening card, can be about connecting in with your intuition to help guide you and make decisions more, maybe listening to your intuition, or maybe before you kind of were more living more from your mind, maybe doing what seemed practical and logical, and this seems just and fair, this seems reasonable, these people seem this way, I should live my life like this or whatever. And life again is about learning these lessons, and I think our intuition was given to us as a gift to help us navigate in this world, for the fact that people can present themselves as anything they want, and they can look the part. They can look stable, grounded, a person of character and integrity, a loving person, a just and fair person. And then you kind of realize sometimes that they're kind of hiding the truth of who they are more emotionally, and that they can be more immature or more superficial and shallow or intimidating and controlling. And that whole life experience could have made some people decide I need to listen more to my intuition, which, just like bats have sonar and birds know when to fly to a warmer climate when the winter's coming. Nobody told them, they just do it. And birds and butterflies know to move. And, but we as human beings, the Emperor, and which is Aries energy, and Libra, we all can think, because Libra being like the King of Swords, I know best, I'm the boss, I got this under control, I have these things I want to manifest, and I'm sure this is just and fair. But sometimes we went and did things that our intuition could have been telling us, you shouldn't do that. You know, you are indulging yourself or you're indulging other people. But, we wanted what we wanted, and no, I'm the boss. I think I can make it work. And we went and did it, and we could have kind of repeated some patterns several times. And then, you know, it was kind of shadowy with the devil. It was limiting, it was restricting, it was confining, it was imprisoning. It wasn't in our best interest. It was putting faith and trust more in the world or in other people, looking outside of ourselves for the answer instead of doing this work within ourselves to hold ourselves accountable and grow up and mature ourselves, hold other people accountable, get more balance within ourselves, because sometimes you can be a very loving person, but then people kind of try to take advantage of your loving nature to get you to keep indulging them in their poor behavior. So because you listen to your intuition, and Aries and Libra are on opposite sides of the zodiac wheel. So, what that can mean is that, sometimes we're more tipped into and we've got lessons to learn, living more from our mind than our heart, or indulging our more fiery nature and being more fired up about these things of the world. And we kind of drive our life off into the ditch in all these different areas because we're learning these lessons. And if we're willing to learn those lessons, then we get more balance within ourselves. And High Vibe Emperor is like, I've driven my life off into the ditch in all these different ways. I've seen other people drive their life off into the ditch. And I need to learn to understand all these different aspects of myself. And that's High Vibe Virgo, is kind of like being self-aware. When I do this, when I do that, when other people do this, if I go too far this way, tip too far out of balance, that way it kind of tips my whole life maybe out of balance. And I need to get more balanced. And you could have realized that some people harness this energy in a more shadowy way, and you harnessed it in a more high vibrational way, where you are someone who's more, listens more to your intuition, and you are motivated and inspired to grow and heal and mature yourself and not keep letting things manipulate you. And you could have viewed some other people as being that type of person. And because you were inspired to get to the truth in your King of Swords energy, you kind of saw the truth that some people maybe weren't who they said they were. They could have said they were this just and fair person, and you could trust them in a way that they would be a good leader. But then you could have found out that they're really kind of a little bit more about themselves, or driven and motivated more by the world, or how it benefits them, their ego or their image or whatever. And it really wasn't, when it came down to having to take other people into consideration that would be affected by their decisions, equally out of truth and justice and fairness, really, they were just a little bit more about themselves, and they think it's just and fair. And you saw the truth of it, and some people who you did think were these just and fair and people who'd hold themselves to a higher standard, like a higher truth and justice, you found out that they didn't. It's more of a worldly justice, which can be being more about ourselves. My wants, my needs, my lusts, my greed, my pride, my ego. And because of all that, and because you were doing this work probably within yourself to be someone who was more balanced and connected in with yourself, that's when the devil showed up. And you could have been a good leader. You could have been balanced. You could have been loving and nurturing. And there's always people who want to be someone who wants to indulge in a relationship with you being in that energy, but it's not really the truth of who they are. Again, maybe a little more emotionally shallow and superficial, a little more manipulative, a little bit more out for themselves. And that whole life experience made you more aware that there are more shadowy people in the world, is what the devil can represent. And you didn't want to be in relationships with people like that. So then when you aren't willing to keep investing your time, energy, and effort into workplaces, friendships, and relationships with people who your intuition and experience has shown you that they really aren't like supportive and encouraging authentically from love, and you stood up for yourself and got more balance within yourself, you just energetically being more balanced within yourself and listening more to your intuition and your fear and your insecurity or your lust or your greed, you're coming across like a very stable, grounded, victorious, successful, attractive person. And the Emperor, fire sign energy, and the devil can just be that people find you very attractive. And so you're having to listen to your intuition about different people who you meet. And based on these lessons you've learned, initially you could have had to take this time to get balance within yourself after having went through some of those experiences, even though you might have some more high vibe people in your life, but ready to put yourself back out there in some ways, if it is to go get a different job, new friend, new relationship, meet new people, trusting that you have learned these lessons well enough. And it is, again, about learning lessons. I'm just going to listen to my intuition. I have lessons learned from all sorts of people, but I have learned that if people act in more shadowy, unjust, unfair ways, I have learned to stand up for myself, feel stable and abundant within myself, that I am going to call judgment on people. And I will more easily be able to distance myself from people, even if in the devil card, there can be a lot of reasons why I might like to be in a relationship with them. You know, they might be attractive, they might be charming, they might have stability and security, or all these things that are in my worldly nature tempt me. But I've already had some experiences, you know, on maybe a different level, but it's really the same thing. It's kind of like all of our life, ever since we were children, then we were pages, and then we were knights, and then we were kings and queens, now emperor and empress. The devil has always been in the environment because there's always people that are shadowy or bossy or more immature or more about themselves. It's just that those different stages of life, we hopefully experience it on a more less complicated, maybe more overt when we're little kids. That person's bossy, that person's a bully, that person's full of themselves. And as we go through these different stages of life, it is the same lessons. There's nothing new under the sun. It's just that people get better at hiding it by what they look like, how they dress, by their status, by their success, or their, you know, grow into their looks. And you have learned to listen to your intuition more to guide you and the actions that you take, and not wanting to repeat some of those old patterns, and not letting your ego or your lust or your greed and those things get the best of you. And because of that, again, I think there's people who find that very attractive. What's coming up for people who might harness a more worldly, shadowy, and there could be people in your life right now that you could work with, that you know, and your intuition tells you, and you know they're more shadowy, and that's why you're not working together with those people anymore, and you've called judgment on them and moved on. Some of those people might not know that you know the truth about them. But you know the truth about them because you're intuitive. What's coming up for the people who might be a little more worldly and shadowy, that they don't see coming the King of Swords and the Ten of Swords. Why? Because of the King of Cups. So when there is more bossy and controlling people in the world, they don't want to do love. They want to kind of wear their false mask. So I'm this just and fair and loving person, but I'm unwilling to change. The tens can talk about completing a cycle. And in order to complete a cycle, you have to quit repeating an old pattern. You know, you kind of detach from an old foundational way of living life and you kind of give birth to a new you. You shed an old layer of yourself and old ways of being and thinking, just like you did going from age 15 to 18 to 21. I'm not going to do those things anymore. You know, I've outgrown that. And they don't want to let go of that. They think it's just and fair that if they present themselves as these just and fair and balanced people who present themselves in the world as loving people to the people they're in relationship with, but it's kind of wearing a false mask. The masculine cards can just represent whether people are male or female. It's how they present themselves in the world, and how we go present ourselves in the world is considered masculine energy, but how do we really think and feel? What is our truth? What is our long-term goal? And some people's truth is, I kind of hide behind my ego. And I'm not going to come out from behind my ego. I'm not going to align with my more hopeful, believing, loving nature. But I'll present myself as a loving family, just and fair person, so people will get in a relationship with me and it all works out fine. I don't do more deep, meaningful relationships. And if they can find someone who's on the same page as them, it works out. But if they have someone in their life or have known some people, those people have worked through all the mental confusion. Those people did complete a cycle. Why? Because of love. They harness these energies in a more high vibrational way. And they worked through all the mental confusion of it. They did the inner work. I see the truth. I've reconciled myself that everybody's where they're at. That's not my truth. Out of love for myself, I'm not going to backstab myself basically by being in a more mismatched relationship. And some of those people are going to move on. And some of these people did not see that coming. Because sometimes shadowy people, maybe because they have a certain status or image, or, you know, they can be loving and encouraging people in our life, but they think we won't love and believe in ourselves enough that when it's not really more authentically from love, but in a lot of ways it can look good, but we kind of feel like we're missing being in a relationship with someone who's really more authentically more inspired by love instead of looking like love, quacking like love, and it looks like love, and it looks very stable and abundant in a lot of ways, but it's kind of the illusion of love, but not really feeling like it is love because they don't really connect in with themselves emotionally. And so they're going to have some people who close out a cycle with them, not going, and they might not know it yet, you know, and they might not want to see the truth. And shadowy people can be, because they have these things that manipulate them within themselves and friends and family and ego and the world and codependency and image and blah, blah, blah. They think, of course, those things manipulate you the same way. But it doesn't. And that's what they don't get. And then they cannot understand why other people aren't manipulated by those things and aren't driven and motivated by those things and make their life about those things. And so I think they're going to have some more high vibrational people leave their life. And what they don't see coming is, you know, eventually, if they keep living their life like this, they're going to end up in relationships with people who are just like them, which is a more just and fair relationship. They might not like it because now they're in a relationship with someone to some degree is just like them, which could be it looks great. Nobody from the outside would be able to tell because it looks like they've got justice in the world. But it is a more emotionally shallow, superficial relationship because both people kind of wear a false mask, don't really do deep, meaningful relationships, but they look like they have all these things in the world. And other people face their fears and are more authentic and passionate and inspired in their relationship out of love and acting with character and integrity and holding themselves accountable. And it is about, I do want these things of the world, but I also want these just and fair and authentic and loving relationships. And they do that work within themselves to maintain that balance within themselves to have true abundance in the world from love. And theirs might be more because of the ego and the image or the status or their fear of love. But we all have the free will to manifest whatever type of life we want to manifest based on what makes us feel comfortable and balanced within ourselves. And for some people, so long as they get in a relationship with other people who feel that same way. What's unjust and unfair is for them to know that's not their truth, but try to get people who are, they know, more motivated and inspired by love, that those people aren't getting the justice they deserve, but they're really kind of more motivated by themselves. And it's like, but I don't care if the loving people aren't getting what they want, because it really is kind of more about me. And eventually the high vibe people in their life realize that it really, you either are more balanced within yourself and you realize it is about working together with people cooperatively from love, or, you kind of want to cheat the system, try to create the illusion you're that. So people who are that will get in a relationship with you. It's good for your ego and your image and your status, but that's not who you are. And the loving people aren't in a relationship with another loving, authentically loving person. And that's an injustice, but they think it's just and fair. It's like a bratty person getting a non-bratty person to keep staying in a relationship with them. No, they're going to have to eventually probably get in a relationship with someone who's just like them. And then they can create their illusion of how wonderful it is, but neither one of them are very maybe connected in with their emotions or deep, meaningful people. And if that's the seeds they plant, to expect they can plant those seeds, but they want other people to plant these other seeds of a love and abundance, and they want to indulge in it, but that's not the seeds that they plant. And until if they get tired of it ever and decide to start listening to their intuition and see the truth that why should I expect that more just, fair, balanced, loving, creative, inspired, hopeful, believing, encouraging people should want to stay in a relationship with me if that's not authentically who I am, even though I might try to present myself as being that type of person. Other people listen to their intuition, and it's like kind of at a soul level, an emotional level, I don't feel like we have a more authentic, deep, meaningful relationship. It feels more that it's about these other things. And that's not why I want to be in a relationship. So there you go, Libra. I wish you peace, love, and joy, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.